The invitation arrived on cream-colored cardstock with embossed gold lettering. You are cordially invited to celebrate the Reynolds family annual gala dinner at Le Bernardin. I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of expensive paper stock, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt something like hope. My name is Marcus Reynolds, and I'm the middle child of 5 siblings. At 32 years old, I'd spent the better part of my adult life being overlooked, dismissed, and treated as an afterthought by my family. But this invitation felt different. This felt like an olive branch. The Reynolds family annual gala had been a tradition for over 2 decades, started by my grandmother before she passed. It was held at the finest restaurants in Manhattan, a black-tie affair where our family gathered with extended relatives, business associates, and family friends. Growing up, I'd watched my older siblings, Victoria and James, take their places at the main table as soon as they turned 18. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. I'd waited for my turn with the eager anticipation of a child waiting for Christmas morning. That turn never came. The first year I was eligible, at 18, I'd been seated at what my mother diplomatically called the junior table with my younger siblings, Emma and Sophie, who were 14 and 12 at the time. Just for this year, my mother had said, touching my shoulder with a practiced smile. We have so many important guests, and the seating is complicated. But it wasn't just that year. It was the next year and the year after that. Even after I graduated from Columbia with honors, even after I started my own consulting firm, even after Emma and Sophie had been promoted to the adult table at 18, I remained at the children's table. Last year, at age 31, I'd sat with my 10-year-old cousin and a group of teenagers while my siblings networked with Manhattan's elite 20 feet away. I'd stopped attending 2 years ago. The humiliation was too much to bear. But this invitation felt personal. It had been hand-delivered to my office by my younger sister Sophie, who'd waited in the lobby until I came down to meet her. "Marcus, please come this year," she'd said, her eyes genuinely pleading. "Mom specifically said she wants you there. Things are going to be different, I promise." I'd searched her face for signs of deception, but Sophie had always been the kind one, the one who'd sneak me sympathetic looks across the restaurant while I sat in exile. I wanted to believe her. "Different how?" I'd asked. "Just trust me. Mom's been talking about how she realizes she's made mistakes. She wants to make things right." Those words had broken through my defenses. I'd accepted the invitation. Now, standing outside Le Bernardin in my best Tom Ford tuxedo, I felt nervous energy coursing through my veins. The restaurant's elegant facade gleamed under the streetlights. I could see through the windows into the private dining room my family had, reserved, crystal chandeliers, pristine white tablecloths, and my family already gathering inside. I walked in, my heart pounding. The hostess checked my name and guided me toward the private room. My mother saw me first. Catherine Reynolds, imperious in a navy Dior gown, her silver hair styled in an elegant chignon, smiled and waved. "Marcus, darling, you came." She air-kissed both my cheeks, a cloud of Chanel No. 5 enveloping me. "You look wonderful." "Thanks, Mom. You too." I smiled, feeling a warmth I hadn't experienced in years. Maybe Sophie was right. Maybe things would be different. My father, Richard Reynolds, shook my hand firmly. "Son, good to see you." His tone was neutral, but at least he acknowledged me. Victoria approached in a stunning red gown, her husband Trevor beside her. "Marcus, oh my God, it's been forever." She hugged me, and I caught Trevor's nod of greeting. James clapped me on the back, his politician's smile wide and practiced. "Little brother." About time you showed up to one of these things. I wasn't the little brother. James was only 2 years older, but I let it slide. I was determined to keep things positive. Sophie appeared at my elbow, squeezing my arm. "See? I told you," she whispered. Emma joined us, elegant in emerald green. "Marcus, you're at table 2, she said, consulting a small seating chart. "Table 2? I asked, confused. I could see only one large table set up in the center of the room, elaborately decorated with orchids and candles. "The auxiliary table," Emma clarified, gesturing to a smaller table positioned near the kitchen doors. "It's just over there." My stomach dropped. I walked closer and saw the setup. The main table, situated beneath the chandelier with the best view of the Manhattan skyline, seated 20. My parents sat at the center, flanked by James and his wife, Victoria and Trevor, aunts, uncles, and various family friends I recognized from previous years. Beside them were elaborate place settings with multiple wine glasses and gold-rimmed china. Table 2 was different. It was smaller, cramped into a corner near the swinging kitchen doors. The lighting was harsher, fluorescent rather than ambient. The linens were white but lacked the luxury of the main table. And seated there, already coloring on paper placemats with crayons, were children. My 9-year-old cousin, Tyler. My uncle's girlfriend's kids, ages 7 and 11. And 3 teenagers I didn't recognize, probably the children of family friends, all glued to their phones. A place card with my name sat at the head of this table. In elegant calligraphy, Marcus Reynolds. I stood there, frozen, as the realization crashed over me like a wave of ice water. Nothing had changed. No, it was worse, because this time they'd made me hope. Sophie appeared beside me, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Marcus, I didn't know. I swear to God, Mom told me you'd be at the main table. She said—" "It's fine," I said, my voice hollow. "It's not fine. This is bullshit. Let me talk to her." "Sophie, don't." I placed a hand on her arm. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. As I sat down at that table, listening to Tyler explain his drawing of a dinosaur, watching the kitchen staff rush past me with appetizers destined for the other table, I felt something inside me crystallize into a hard, cold stone. I watched my family at the main table. I watched my father stand and give a toast, welcoming everyone to the annual gala, thanking them for their continued success and support. I watched James laugh at something a venture capitalist said. I watched Victoria pose for photos with my mother. I watched them all, in their designer clothes and expensive jewelry, celebrating their achievements and connections. And not one of them looked my way. The teenagers at my table put in earbuds. Tyler spilled his Sprite on my sleeve. The 7-year-old asked me if I was the babysitter. During the main course, a beautiful sea bass that I barely tasted, I made a decision. I took out my phone and began making notes. Plans, calculations. I'd spent years building my consulting firm, learning how businesses worked, how relationships were leveraged, how power dynamics shifted. I knew how to analyze systems and find pressure points. It was time to apply that knowledge to my family. I stayed through dessert, playing the role of the dutiful son who was grateful just to be included. I said goodbye to my parents with a smile, hugged my siblings, and left with my head high. But I wasn't defeated. I was strategic. Over the next 2 weeks, I did something I'd never done before. I leveraged every professional connection I had to investigate my family's business dealings. The Reynolds family wealth came primarily from my father's commercial real estate empire and my mother's family trust. James was a partner in a major law firm. Victoria ran a high-end interior design business that catered to Manhattan's elite. What I discovered was illuminating. James's law firm was being investigated for ethics violations, nothing criminal, but enough to damage reputations. Victoria's business was struggling after losing two major clients. My father's company was bidding on a significant development project in Brooklyn that would make or break their fiscal year. And I knew people. After 8 years building my consulting firm, I'd cultivated relationships with journalists, real estate developers, city officials, and social media influencers. I just never thought to use them for anything personal. Until now. I started subtly, carefully. I called my contact at the New York Times business section and mentioned, purely as background information, that I'd heard rumors about ethical concerns at James's firm. Was there any merit to those rumors? The journalist thanked me for the tip and said they'd look into it. I reached out to a former client, a billionaire who was launching a new luxury hotel chain, and mentioned that if they were looking for interior designers, they should avoid firms with questionable business practices. When pressed, I reluctantly shared that my own sister's firm had recently been involved in some disputes with clients. I gave him the names of 3 of Victoria's biggest prospects, clients I discovered through a mutual contact. He called them the next day with better offers and more competitive pricing. For my father, I played a longer game. The Brooklyn development project required city approval. I happened to know 2 city council members well from consulting work I'd done for their campaigns. Over coffee, I casually mentioned that the Reynolds project had some community opposition, which was true, though minor. I suggested they might want to be cautious about appearing too cozy with developers who weren't sensitive to community concerns. They took the hint. None of this was illegal. I wasn't sabotaging anything directly. I was simply allowing natural consequences to unfold, while ensuring the right information reached the right people at the right time. Within 3 weeks, the effects began to show. The Times ran a story about ethics concerns at major Manhattan law firms, with James's firm featured prominently. He wasn't named personally, but everyone in their social circle knew where he worked. Victoria's business lost 2 more major contracts. I heard through the grapevine that my mother was helping her with expenses. My father's Brooklyn project stalled in committee, with city council members citing community concerns and the need for further environmental review. I watched it all unfold from a distance, carefully maintaining my role as the overlooked middle child who nobody thought about. The family group chat, which I was technically part of, but which rarely included messages directed at me, began lighting up with stressed messages. James complaining about media witch hunts, Victoria asking if anyone knew why clients were suddenly canceling, my father's terse messages about political bullshit delaying the project. I sent sympathetic messages. "That's terrible, James." "Sorry to hear that, Victoria." "Hang in there, Dad." Then I received a text from my mother. "Marcus, we need to talk. Can you come to the house this evening?" I smiled. It had taken exactly 23 days. I arrived at my parents' Upper East Side townhouse at 7 p.m., dressed in business casual. My mother opened the door herself, which was unusual. They had staff for that. "Marcus, thank you for coming." She looked tired, her makeup not quite concealing the stress lines around her eyes. "Come in. Your father and I need to speak with you." I followed her to the sitting room, where my father stood by the window, his posture rigid. "Sit down, son," he said. I sat, maintaining a neutral expression. My mother perched on the edge of the sofa across from me. "Marcus, we're going through some challenges right now, as a family." "I've seen the news," said sympathetically. "I'm sorry about all this." "Yes, well," my father turned from the window. "The thing is, we need your help." This was new. In 32 years, my parents had never asked me for help. My help? I kept my voice curious, not eager. "Your consulting firm," my mother said. "You work with city officials, don't you? And media relations?" "Among other things," I acknowledged. We need someone who can help manage this situation, my father said bluntly. James's firm needs better PR. Victoria needs business consulting, and my Brooklyn project needs someone who understands how to navigate city politics. We're prepared to hire you, my mother added. At your normal rates, of course. This would be a business arrangement. I let the silence stretch for a moment. Why me? They looked at each other. What do you mean? My mother asked. I mean, you have resources. You know people. Why come to me? We're not exactly close. My father's jaw tightened. Your family, Marcus. Family helps family. Do they? I leaned back in my chair. Because I'm trying to remember the last time this family helped me. Marcus, my mother began. No, seriously, I'm trying to remember. Was it when you seated me at the children's table at the gala? Again? After promising things would be different? My mother had the grace to look embarrassed. That was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mom. It was a choice. The same choice you've made for 14 years. To treat me like I don't matter, like I'm not a real part of this family. That's not fair, my father said. Isn't it? I stood up. Do you know what I do, Dad? Do you know that my consulting firm just signed a contract with 3 Fortune 500 companies? That I was featured in Forbes last year? That I have connections all over this city that could have helped you avoid these problems in the first place? Marcus, my mother said softly, we're sorry. We didn't realize. You didn't realize because you never asked. You never looked. I was just the kid at the children's table. My father's expression hardened. So what? You're refusing to help your family out of spite? I'm not refusing, I said calmly. I'm just wondering what's in it for me. We'll pay you, my mother started. I don't need your money. I need respect. I need to be treated like an adult member of this family. They exchanged glances again. My father nodded slowly. Fair enough, he said. What do you want? I'd thought about this carefully. I want a formal seat on the board of Reynolds Properties. I want to be included in all major family decisions. And I want a public acknowledgement that I'm a valued member of this family, not an afterthought. Done, my father said immediately. And one more thing, I added. At the next family gala, I want to be seated at the main table with my girlfriend. I didn't have a girlfriend, but they didn't know that. Of course, my mother said quickly. Absolutely. And I want an apology, a real one, from both of you. The room fell silent. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Marcus, I am so sorry. I truly am. I don't know why I think I just didn't see what I was doing. You were always so independent, so capable. I thought you didn't need the attention the way the others did. But that's no excuse. I hurt you, and I'm sorry. My father cleared his throat. Your mother's right. We took you for granted. You deserved better. I'm sorry, son. I felt a lump forming in my throat despite myself. I'd wanted this for so long. Okay, I said quietly. Then I'll help. Over the next 6 weeks, I worked with my family in a way I never had before. I met with James's firm and created a media strategy that helped them weather the ethics investigation. I consulted with Victoria on streamlining her business model and introduced her to 3 new high-profile clients. And I used my city council connections to help my father's Brooklyn project gain the approvals it needed. I was good at what I did, and for the first time, my family saw it. James called me to thank me after the Times printed a favorable follow-up piece. Victoria sent a gift basket to my office after signing a contract with a major developer. My father shook my hand and said, "You really pulled through for us." But the real change was subtler. I started being included in family dinners, not formal events, just regular Sunday meals. My mother called to ask about my week. My father forwarded business articles he thought I'd find interesting. Emma and Sophie had always been supportive, but now they included me in their sibling group chat with James and Victoria. The board position came through. My name was added to the letterhead of Reynolds Properties. And then came the invitation to the next annual gala. This time, I didn't need Sophie to deliver it. My mother called me personally. Marcus, the gala is next month. I want you to know that you'll be seated at the main table, you and your guest. In fact, I'd like you to sit beside me if that's all right. That's more than all right, Mom. Thank you. And Marcus, I really am proud of you. I should have said that years ago. After we hung up, I sat in my office, looking out at the Manhattan skyline, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. The night of the gala, I arrived with Rebecca, a woman I'd been dating for a few weeks. She was brilliant, funny, and worked as a curator at MoMA. She knew about my family situation, I'd been honest with her, and she'd agreed to attend as my date. "Ready?" she asked as we approached Le Bernardin. "Ready," I said. The private dining room looked exactly as it had the year before, but my perspective had changed entirely. The same chandelier, the same orchids, the same elegant table settings. But this time my place card sat between my mother and Sophie at the center of the main table. My family greeted me warmly. James introduced me to a federal judge as my brother, the consultant who saved our asses. Victoria hugged Rebecca and immediately bonded over their mutual love of contemporary art. My father insisted I meet his business partners. During dinner, my mother stood to give a toast. "I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone special," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "My son Marcus has always been extraordinary, but I was too blind to see it. He's built an incredible career. He's been there for this family when we needed him most, and he's done it all with grace and dignity, despite the fact that we didn't always appreciate him the way we should have." She looked directly at me, tears in her eyes. "Marcus, I'm sorry it took me so long to recognize what everyone else could see, that you're brilliant, capable, and an essential part of this family. Thank you for giving us another chance." The room erupted in applause. I felt my own eyes getting wet as I stood and hugged my mother. Later, as Rebecca and I danced to the string quartet's rendition of "The Way You Look Tonight," Sophie appeared at my elbow. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" she said quietly. I looked at her. "Did what?" "All those business problems. Those weren't coincidences." I didn't answer immediately. Sophie was smart. I'd always known that. "If I did," I said carefully, "would that make me a terrible person?" She considered this. "I don't think so. I think it would make you someone who was tired of being invisible, someone who wanted his family to see him. And it worked. They see you now. We all do." She squeezed my arm. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you did it, whatever it was." As the night wore on, I found myself genuinely enjoying the evening. The conversations were engaging, the food was exceptional. My family treated me like I belonged. But the real satisfaction came from something simpler. Sitting at that table, in the place I should have been all along, finally being seen for who I was. Revenge, I discovered, wasn't always about destruction. Sometimes it was about reconstruction, taking apart the structures that diminished you and rebuilding them into something that recognized your worth. I'd spent years at the children's table, invisible and overlooked. Now I sat at the center of the family, not because they'd suddenly decided to be generous, but because I'd shown them, forced them to see, what they'd been missing all along. As I raised my glass for the final toast of the evening, catching my mother's proud smile and my father's approving nod, I realized something unexpected. I'd gotten my revenge, and in the process, I'd gotten my family back. Sometimes those two things were the same.